Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today and joining my friend John Schuster as we talk about the subject of aging. And John, welcome. Thank you for taking this time.
Yeah, my pleasure, Susanna. Thanks for having me on.
And let me say a few words about you. And let me remind, so I have, and some of you probably, I hope, have listened to my podcast interview with John. John was one of my coaches at the Hudson Institute of Coaching way back in 2007, I believe it was, John. And he has stayed an influence in my life ever since. And if any of you have read my book, I mention and actually quote from his book, which is about answering your call. And for those of you who are familiar with the heroine's journey, answering your call is a major piece of that. But a few more words about John. And of course, what you've been doing, John, has been evolving. You are still a coach, you're an author, you're a teacher, you have worked with organizations, you have worked with MBA programs, with CEOs, but so much of what you've done is helping people in their transitions, in their life transitions. And of course, that segues perfectly into what you're doing now and why we decided to meet today to talk about this program you're doing called the Poetics of Aging, because as somebody who turned 71 in November, aging is certainly um, ever present. So anything more you wanted to add to that? And we want to talk about the woman you're also offering this course with. Maybe you could explain who Noirin is.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to do that. So, hello, everyone, and thanks, Susanna, for that great intro. Yeah, I went from organizational work to which I still do some of, but which I'm glad to now make a lot of room for work in other types of arenas, other types of transitions, and the big one to the latter years, or whatever you want to call them, latter life years, starting to occur to me. I'm 74 now. And when I was about 67, it really hit me. And a couple of guides on my way were Celtic spirituality, which is a different way of looking at aging when you're not in America. And that's what Noreen, who's not here right now because she's on a plane, I think. Um, she just went to her my colleague here just went to her first grandchild's, talk about aging, her first grandchild's christening. So she had a good reason not to be here. But she is Irish and from Limerick, and holds the deepest and the best part of the kind of the ancient Irish culture, all the way updated though to modern times. So she was not here, but she'll be doing the program with me. And they offered she and her sons, and the Celtic approach, which was in my master's thesis, Susanna, or such a life cycle, such a rebirth, regeneration. It's a more hopeful image than many of us have about aging, I think, which we see as a decline. So, and we've known each other now for a number of years. She's been my teacher, and so that's what I would add is I started taking my guitar and going out to nursing homes, 7, 8 years ago, to learn about and to serve the people who are making this transition without a lot of help from our culture. So,
I wonder if you would relate, and I bet you would, and I bet Noreen would as well, relate to the book that I've been reading called Haggitude. And it's written by another Irish woman, Sharon Blackie. And Haggitude is about embracing your inner hag. And and it's the same kind of thing. And she talks about our mythology. Celtic mythology has all these wonderful old women, and I like, oh boy, I can't even remember. I don't think I could pronounce the name. It's something like the Kaliak. Is that familiar with, that are in their mythology who are wonderful, like ancient fairy godmothers that come to help us as we transition to this stage.
Yeah.
So it is about embracing instead of rejecting and trying to look young and thinking about, well, we're done. And yeah, we're not
Yeah.
done.
No, hardly done at all. No, that's the great news. Well, it occurred to me that some years ago that this is a great time for development and growth. The development and growth story is a story that's lost in our culture as we see it as a physical diminishment of performance, whatever our midlife years were about, and and people start feeling this early on. You can start feeling this in your 50s, and then you may not really feel it very much, but you start to say, oh yeah, I've got more of my career behind me now than I do in front of me. So you should start thinking second half of life. You start to have to think about what your strategies are. And Haggitude's a great title, but one strategy is carry forth as many things as possible from your midlife. So your midlife successes can be carried forward as long as they can be. And
Yeah.
that's a good strategy. But eventually that those do decline. We have peaks, performance peaks and financial peaks, but the human energy continues to go up. And so the other strategy is what can substitute, and not only that, what's new, what's really new that can come into my life now. So it's not just the question, what can I still do that I used to be able to do, but what can I do now better than ever because I am older? And that's
And
the question to ask.
and I think talking about callings, I've read that callings, and I experienced this myself, take a long time to really uncover, to extract from all the, this is what you should be doing, and you do what you should be doing, and there's still that ever flowing fountain within you that needs to be expressed that hasn't been expressed. So maybe this is the perfect time.
Well, it is the time. If you don't do it now, when you're going to do it, but you've also learned so much. You've got this nice harvest of wisdom. You can harvest who you are and who you've been and all the learnings from all these earlier chapters. It's not like those older chapters go away. You bring those with you, but you keep creating a newness about it and a new kind of synthesis. And then there's absolutely beyond the synthesis. There's something new that comes in. Many new possibilities come in, and that you have to be able to say yes to that. So it's still saying yes, just like you say yes to the callings of midlife. You say yes to the callings of elderhood or the later years. And there's young old, and there's middle old, and there's old. And young old is different than mid old. I'm mid old now. At 75, you kind of okay, and then at 85 and above, people say, okay, now you're older old, but these numbers, of course, have been stretched out with longevity. And so we'll look at the science. There's some great science in here that is underemphasized. And then our approach will obviously be through the arts because we lean into that. And I failed to mention Norin's last name, Noirin Riain. And she can speak Gaelic. And so I wish I could say her name a little bit more like she does but it's a beautiful name. And she's the one who is a true artist. She's been a performer her whole life. I've been a performer. I came to it late, much later in my life when I started to sing and play a little guitar. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Actually, same with me, though I have moved out of it actually. But so let's just talk about the program is 3 different Saturdays,
Hmm.
hour and a half, 90 minutes each. And I'll be sure to include a way for people to sign up. It starts on March
25th.
25th,
Hmm.
and then it's April 1st and April 8th. And it's called Sailing to Byzantium, the Poetics of Aging. And sailing to Byzantium is explain to people why sailing to Byzantium.
Sure, yeah, that title is kind of mysterious and it's a little exotic, right? But that was William Butler Yeats, the Nobel-winning Irish poet, who wrote that poem. And in that poem, well, the poem starts off with the lines, "Thank you for that." no, this is no country for old men.
Yeah.
And he's talking about when you get older, oh, there goes, what do we do? And he has some famous lines in there that are, but it's actually quite filled with hope. And it's all about use your imagination, the world of your imagination, the new, the innovative, that which flows within you and into you. That's why you want, how you want to age. I use Mary Oliver's great poem too sometimes. Mary Oliver, the great American poet who died not too many years ago, she had a poem on the ending of our lives. But in that, she has this great line. She says, "When it's all over, I want others to say that I was a bridegroom married to amazement.
Right.
That I was a no that I was a bride married to amazement. That I was a bridegroom holding the world in my arms. I don't want to be full of argument or find myself sighing or frightened. I don't want to have just visited this world."
Mhm.
And that's Mary Oliver's perfect kind of saying vitality. It's about vitality and embracing the world. And so the program is going to be, and you could, that poem's for 45-year-olds or 75-year-olds or 105-year-olds. You know, it's all about vitality and embracing what we're about and answering that call no matter what it is. And that's the story that's just not told well enough. Yeah.
Right. Right. It's our, I would say, our current myth of aging in the United States primarily is okay, you work as long as you can work in your career, and then you retire, though even that word I know is getting over, you know, we're not using it as much as we used to, but then you get to live a life of ease and do what you've always wanted to do. And maybe that's, and now I'm really doing the cliche here, but it's golfing, or maybe you're making quilts, or but you're certainly not starting something new. You're certainly, that's not the current thinking, I don't think, about what happens when we age.
Yeah. What's clear now is that there's this whole new stage of life that was not just wasn't there when we looked at adult development years ago, even 25, 30 years ago. And now with this new stage of life, people are revisioning, finding themselves anew. But some still have some. We have residuals of those old scripts in our head, and our institutions aren't very good at capturing this new version of who we want to be.
Yeah.
It's the boomers kind of making it up as we go. Again, there's a lot of us, you know, and we're still figuring this out. But but that's the good news, is it's not a decline story anymore. It's a story of, yes, there will be physical losses. And second half of life, you do have to learn how to cooperate with loss. But you don't have to learn to love it. You just cooperate with it and move on. You know?
I remember my grandmother and my mother talking about their friends dying and who's left, and that happens. And yeah, so
Yeah.
gracefully aging and poetically. So when you talk about the poetics of aging,
Hmm.
like an art form almost.
Yeah, it's the good, the true, and the beautiful. You know, that's our spirituality is sometimes well expressed through a faith that somebody might have, but often it's outside of faith. And the poetics is the beauty part. It's the good, the true, the beautiful. Is if that's what helps us expand beyond who we are and see have glimpses of or reside in a bigger space, a more expansive space of life and possibility. Then let's look at things poetically, which goes hand in hand with science, but not let's not let the science and a study of the decline of the body define what it's about.
Mhm. So you could maybe even say it's a spiritual journey. Aging
Oh,
is, yeah,
and I'd
spiritual.
say answering your call. It's an inner game. It's absolutely an inner game. And if we don't learn the inner game, we can start learning it, for instance, with the calling of a heroine's journey. You know, you learn that in midlife. What's my calling now? Now that I kind of can live life more on my terms. So that begins that inner game, that spiritual side of life that starts to, and that's what sailing to Byzantium is all about. Keep on sailing, unfurl those sails, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, so it certainly has happened to me that my calling has really risen to the surface after I put the finishing touches on my career, which was consulting and executive coaching and working with people in conflict, which was very satisfying. But that's when I began to put my energy into the heroine's journey and teaching that. And now what's happening, and this is in keeping, I think, with your master's thesis, is that as I studied about the heroine and the heroine's journey, the whole what is the sacred feminine and what that question has come up. And now I'm working on that. And I know that that was part of what you studied.
It was, and again, Ireland is a beautiful place to study the sacred feminine. So I literally went to Ireland to write a master's thesis in Celtic consciousness as a kind of a healing force. Hence Noirin Riain, so you can see why this is coming together for me. But yeah, that's the if you that master's degree I wrote was 10 years ago, by the way. It was 40 some years between my two masters, and that's why it's on my mind. I didn't write it when I was in my 20s, which was that was a literary effort I made in my 20s when I got that master's. But this one's about what is it that can help modern people who are caught in a productive culture. Economics drives us, what's good for General Motors, what's good for Amazon is good for the United States. Well, and we all know it's much broader than that, and this is part of that broadening. How do you identify as someone as what you do or as who you become? And you become more of yourself the older you get is the possibility. Yeah.
And the way I understand the heroes in the heroine's journey is that our job in life is to become fully who we are, because that's what we're here for. That's what the world needs, is us being our individual, unique selves, not just like everybody else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the great message from everywhere you look is that sure you fit in the first half of life. You fit in enough in life to make a living and to do those kinds of things. But boy, by the second half of life, the call is really to find that original self. Yeats had another line that is a beautiful line. Yeats, the one who wrote Sailing to Byzantium, he said, "From mirror after mirror, no vanity displayed." So this person's going looking in the mirror because he's, well, if it's not for vanity, why is he there? And he says, "I'm looking for the face I had before the world was made."
Yeah.
So who's that original self? From mirror after mirror, no vanity displayed. I'm looking for the face I had before the world was made.
And some would say that face that will always remain, that can't go.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, okay, then let's just say again that the way people can find this course to learn a little more about it will be to go to your website, which is
Paul Schuster.
John P as in Paul Schuster.com. And I will also send out information about it. To sign up soon, you'll go there, and 3 Saturdays, Poetics of Aging. It gives us the promise, the hope that it's going to be a beautiful thing. It's going to be an uplifting thing that who knows if we really fully embrace it, like embracing the hag with which Shirley Blackie talks about, Sharon Blackie, then maybe new things will be discovered. Maybe things looking at life a whole new way that we never even thought of. Maybe we're on the frontier where we
That's
think
right.
we're ending. Maybe we're just beginning.
Wonderful ways to say it, Susanna. That's absolutely right. Well, you're welcome, everybody. Please join us. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, John.
Bye, Susanna.
Bye.